Sonya Thomas is with us, Nashville PROPEL Executive Director. It's good to have you on, talking about a lot of issues I think are important to a lot of people. We always get a lot of phone calls. Now, you and PROPEL, I think, are involved with The Truth About Reading. It's a movie you've seen. I'll show you seen a screening of it out of Detroit. It's going to eventually be streamed. We don't know exactly where the outlets will be, but real quick, we want to see this clip. We're going to show you just a portion of it, and we'll get to the phone calls. Just so you give us a real quick primer, this is about what? The importance of reading, and highlights what?
This is a part of a movement to make sure that people all across this country understand that literacy is the real crisis. It is a civil rights issue, and a lot of people, thousands of people, do not know how to read, but there's something that we can do about it.
Okay, let's just have a brief look at maybe a minute, and then we'll bail out of it, but show you an idea, a minute or two, of what this movie's about.
So go ahead, take your time going down and just read me those words from the top to the bottom.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're right.
Bought, interested, knowledge, peace, euphemism. Unless I really dig deep into this one, I don't have an answer.
Really hard. The answer is really hard.
This seems like elementary school. I feel embarrassed.
All across this country, kids are not being taught how to read the words. This is a misunderstanding that has to be exposed, that the system works for most kids and it's those few that fail. And that's a lie.
Look it up, it's everywhere. You will see over 60% of children are not reading at grade level proficiency.
I was definitely hiding, keeping this secret to myself because I was embarrassed. More than anything, I felt like a fraud.
I remember I was always nervous to get called on. The teacher would realize who would read the best. They would eventually just continue calling on that person to read. I would always struggle.
17 years I taught public high school in California. I could not read, write, or spell.
According to BeginToRead.com, 2/3 of students who cannot read proficiently by the 4th grade end up in jail or on welfare.
Half of them cannot read. 50% can't read. I asked myself, is that a coincidence or is it intentional? The suburbs, the white flight, people running to the suburbs, and how our government created the slums. As someone who grew up here, someone who has been incarcerated, I was a product of my environment.
The school in the poor neighborhood got all the government funding. They got all that money, all those resources, but performance didn't improve.
There's a notion, a belief that kids start to read because they've matured to the point where they're ready to start reading. It's not correct.
The reading wars, should we be teaching kids phonics or what was termed whole language?
You can see the wind wind through the valley because of the fog. Wind and wine are pronounced differently. They're spelled exactly the same. Phonics does you no good there. It is contextual.
The theory was they just need to memorize a whole bunch of words, and that's what good readers do.
They say, no, it's all about comprehension. But I say, well, but if they can't read the words, how can they comprehend? It's almost like suggesting that a child who was listening to Mozart all their life, you put them in front of a piano and you say, now you play Mozart.
Research is
okay, we're just going to let it keep playing and talk a bit over this, but you're in a portion of this as well. That's powerful stuff. I mean, that was a teacher there a moment ago who talked about working all those years and he couldn't read and write.
He went through school, went through college, graduated, and taught college, taught high school, and could not read.
Could not read. So this highlights it, and the numbers that they're talking about there, the 60%, it reflects what's happened here in Nashville, right?
And across the country.
And across the country.
It matches. You know, the math has to be mathing, right? It has to make sense, and it just makes sense. What doesn't make sense is we have so many children and grown-ups, we're talking generations, who have been affected by this.
Well, and the thing is, too, now, I think your success in life can be predicated in large measure on whether you can do things like reading, writing, and arithmetic, all of that. But that first elderly gentleman that was having trouble reading those words, you were telling me, he's a multimillionaire. This is a guy who's very successful and seems to be a very intelligent person, but somehow managed to succeed without being able to read.
There's some privilege in there. That's what I'm talking about. Like, me as a black person who cannot read, I'm sorry, I probably will not be as successful.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
So there, and you know, he tells his story in that movie, and there's some, you know, he has some opportunities that myself or people in my community may not have had.
The privilege comes into play,
But the thing is, you know, God bless him too. Like, he walked around with that dirty secret all his life, and as Kimberly called it and said, his self-esteem was low. He was embarrassed, but he had to fake it until he made it. And a lot of people are faking it until the dirty secret is either told by themselves as they tell their story, or is revealed.
So it's safe to say, there's no doubt, you and I probably know several people, and we have no idea, but they can't read or write, or are not proficient anyway. I guarantee you, all of us, maybe yourself, but you know someone out there, you just don't know it because they can hide it, and it's widespread.
Because I'm building relationships with families in this city, something that, in partnership, something that's not happening. I am learning that more and more of the parents that we engage do not know how to read.
And by the way, as we take more phone calls, it's never too late to learn, too. There are courses there where there are parents and adults, rather, going back and getting help and learning to read. You can do it.
The trailer proves it.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. You can still do it. Let's go to, I think next up is James. James, good morning. Hi, James.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Good. What's on your mind?
Dyslexia and other forms of it, it really does screw with people. I suffered with it as a child, and the cure for it, thank God Miss Solomon didn't give up on me. She took a piece of notepaper and cut a L-shaped hole in it. All right, James, read the first sentence. And then she taught me several other tricks, and she was a very talented teacher. God, I wish kids had her. She was that talented.
Having a great teacher. Now, by the way, I'm glad he brought up dyslexia, but that's a separate issue here, isn't it?
No.
Okay. Well, no, I mean, dyslexia is a problem for anyone. You can have, you know, that's something that has to be addressed that's aside from the teaching issues that these other kids are having.
No, I'm saying...
Well, I'm just saying, if you have dyslexia and you're in one of these underprivileged schools, then you're really in trouble.
You're really in trouble. But what I am saying is this. If we give our educators the foundational skills in literacy, we're going to cover a multitude. We're going to cover those who are struggling readers, meaning those who have dyslexia, those who have other forms of things happening with them. We will cover the masses. Right now, MNPS even denies or does not really acknowledge dyslexia.
Okay.
So imagine how many people they're missing. Many educators, when you talk to them about it, dyslexia, they can't even tell you what it means to have dyslexia. That's why we need to make sure we're equipping them so that when they have these things to face, right, then they have the knowledge and the power. But that comes with our colleges and universities making sure that these issues are addressed there, and also the continuous professional development in our school districts across this country. There's no reason. 99% of all human beings can be taught how to read if we make sure that we are doing things based on the science and research. And we will cover people like James. Thank God for Miss Solomon. Thank you, Miss Solomon. Yeah. Thank you, Miss Solomon, for your hard work and your dedication. Thank you so much for investing in James. That is the tenacity, that is the sense of urgency that we have to have. And just imagine if we equip Miss Solomon with the things that we know now, we'll eliminate that stuff.
Next up is Renee. Let's hear from Renee. Good morning, Renee.
Good morning, Nick and Ms. Thomas. I was a teacher for over 25 years, and I was primarily a reading teacher. So I have a few points I want to add and maybe some clarification. So first, I want to say that reading to children activates imagination. Two, combining certain letters produce sounds. 3, emotional trauma affects a child's ability to learn, i.e. to read. 4, parents must do a better job helping their children learn to read by having a literacy center at home with books, magazines, dictionaries, audio tapes, etc. available. And 5, kids with processing difficulties such as dyslexia do need specialists to step in to assist them.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I totally agree with everything you said.
Yeah, all of that.
All of that. I do not refute any of that. So thank you so much for calling in.
Let's take Nina next. Nina, good morning. Hi, Nina.
Hi, how are you? My name is Nina Lockard. I'm a Nashville Powerful Propel parent.
Awesome.
Good morning, Sonya. Thanks again for putting us on this platform and educating. As a former educator and a mother of 3 boys and going through the Nashville Public School system and going to a lower performance school, I'm seeing the same trend of when I was in school with social and economic disadvantages and students not being able to get the access. But also, I think as a former educator and a parent, it's disheartening to see teachers that are not invested in learning differential instruction to provide education across the board, despite who's in that seat in a general setting. And Sonya, I would say we say post-pandemic, but we know we were in an educational pandemic prior to COVID-19. I would say, what would you give advice to parents that don't know how to navigate those waters of having those conversations with those teachers that are not giving intentional support and instruction in that general classroom setting, especially at that middle school age when it's required of so much organizational skills and transition and balancing that social and emotional?
Thank you. Think on that, because we have to take this break. And when we come back, she'll answer that question again on what parents, how they can navigate that when they're running into what she just described. So stay with us. Our final segment with Sonya Thomas and Nashville Propel right after this.